Everyone moving towards electrification, range anxiety is real, but the plug-in hybrid offers the best of all worlds with that electric-only range for the daily drive, as well as that gas-powered engine for when you do go on those road trips. Add in some luxury features, and this thing might just be the perfect daily driver. Let's go ahead and take a look. For the gas-powered part of this powertrain, we have a 2-liter direct injected 4-cylinder, and it has a turbocharger, and that powers the front wheels. For the electric portion, we have a motor that controls just the back wheels alone. So that means if you are running on pure EV, you are in full-time rear-wheel drive. You're running if your battery is completely drained, you are running in front-wheel drive full time. Otherwise, the systems will work together to get you grip where needed, depending on what driving mode you're in and what situation you are in. Now, the system combined makes 455 horsepower. That's 312 horsepower from the gasoline engine and 143 horsepower from the rear axle from that electric motor. And we have 523 pound-feet of torque. That is so much more power and so much more torque than I expected this car to have. This thing can move. It does weigh about 4,400 pounds. We're seeing a lot of that with EVs, and especially when you're talking about luxury cars, these things are getting pretty heavy, but it still does 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds for those of you looking to get off the line quickly and to get up to speed quickly. Definitely no slouch when it comes to power. Volvo has rated this car at 41 miles of pure electric range. Every time I charge up, it looks like it's getting closer to 45, so that's good news, going in the right direction there. Now, one thing about a plug-in hybrid is you don't have to worry about having a level 2 charger. I've said in some of my other videos, if you have a pure EV, you really want to have a level 2 charger at home. Here, it takes about 15 hours to get the full range back if I'm using the Volvo charger. With the level 1, that's just a standard outlet. An EV accessories company called Lectron actually sent me one of their chargers claiming that it would charge faster, and it did charge in just under 12 hours. So that actually lets me get my full range back before I have to leave for work if I'm charging 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you want to grab one of those, look down in the comments below for a link to that. I've been daily driving this car for about a week at this point, and the first thing that I noticed when I started driving was the ride quality. Ride quality is very good, so that really surprised me. Plus the fact that this is on 19-inch wheels are pretty aggressive. You lose out on some of that sidewall on the tire. You end up with worse ride quality, but the ride quality is very good. It's really surprisingly good in this car. This also does have the dynamic chassis, no matter what trim you are in. If you're not familiar with that, it means you can adjust your suspension essentially. But even if you put it into the stiffest setting, you put it in your power mode, there's a hybrid power, a pure, which is all EV, and an all-wheel drive, full-time all-wheel drive mode. But even if you put it into that power mode, it's still rides really smoothly. Now, the other thing that will adjust when you adjust that driving mode, it'll adjust how your all-wheel drive system is reacting, whether you're being more aggressive or less aggressive, how much grip you really need for a particular situation. It will also adjust your steering feel, and the steering does get heavier as you go faster, but generally speaking, the steering is very light. It's very easy to steer. At low speeds, I could probably steer it with one finger. Even if you put it into that power mode, again, it doesn't get super heavy. It's very easy to steer. It's also pretty quiet in here. You know, it's not sanctuary quiet, but it is very quiet. Generally speaking, the only thing I'm really getting is like when the loud trucks come by, or there's a little bit of tire noise as well. So if you wanted to swap out the tires, I bet that would help quite a bit here. Another thing that surprised me about this car is just how peppy it is, how quick it is. You know, I didn't expect it to have quite so much power, quite so much torque. This is obviously not something that you're going to be canyon carving. It's not something that you're going to be doing light to light races. You know, if you were to race somebody at a stoplight, then you would surprise some people. As a 4.3 second 0 to 60 time, and it's quick. You know, more realistically, it's going to help you on the highway. It's going to help you in emergency situations where you need to move quickly. So it really is surprisingly quick. It's surprisingly just easy to drive. It's a very easy car to drive. It does the daily drive so well. In terms of visibility all around, the visibility is really good as well. This is something I get kind of spoiled with my GTI. Having a hatchback with a flat back, the visibility out the back is always really good. And I get in these sedans a lot of times and I'm like, it's fine. Like the visibility is fine, but it's not great. You can see very well from out all the sides and the back and the front. You know, it does have the kind of a long nose, but what's surprising to me is how well I can see out the back of this car. And a lot of times those headrests will get in the way when you have people back there. If you leave those headrests in the back up accidentally, you can go into the infotainment and you can knock those down, which is kind of a cool feature. So I just went in there yesterday. I was driving to work. I already dropped my kid off. I'll just go in, pop those headrests down. Now I get even better visibility out the back. Maybe your passengers are really bugging you and you just want to bonk them on the head. Knock those headrests right on them. Some other interesting things about the driving here, there's a little raindrop here on the gauge cluster, which will show you when you're in pure EV mode versus when you are actually using gasoline. It's a nice little touch. You'll see that drop as the EV range goes down, or if you go into your power mode. And it'll also show you when you drop into regenerative charging. So that's pretty nice. You know, it tells you when you're charging, it tells you when you're using power, and it tells you when you're using gasoline. Something else I noticed here on the gauge cluster is there is a B mode here. So when you drop, you can actually pull your transmission gear shift down one notch and it will go into this B mode. And what that does is, like in full on EVs, you have one pedal driving, where when you take your foot off the gas, the car will start to brake and it'll be more aggressive about the regen basically. And I haven't actually seen that in hybrids before, including plug-in hybrids, but this one has that, which is a very cool feature because it'll help you regen, it'll help your EV range last a little bit longer. Speaking of that range, you know, I've only used like a couple of gallons of gas here in this whole week. So and I have about a 50 to 60 mile commute. So if you are someone that has a shorter commute, you're basically never using gas. If you're someone even that has a commute as long as mine, you're filling up maybe once a month. A few other notes about driving this thing. In terms of safety and driver's assist features, if you're going to get a luxury level car like this, you want it to have good safety features, good driver's assist features, especially as we're starting to push technology into these plug-in hybrids, things like this. And this one does a very good job with the driver's assist features. I have the heads-up display only because I'm in the top spec, but it does have current speed limit. It has the traffic sign recognition. It does have my directions. My directions are also in the gauge cluster. It's a really pretty cool system. So even if I didn't have the heads-up display, I would have the full map down here. It has adaptive cruise, and that is only because we are not in the bottom spec. The top two specs get the adaptive cruise. It's not super aggressive in terms of the distance control. You know, you can set it to the smallest distance and it'll still be pretty loose. And it also has something called pilot assist, which is essentially lane centering mixed with that adaptive cruise. It will also work in stop and go traffic. But with that lane centering, you know, I always say Hyundai, Kia is really the best. Volkswagen, I mentioned, and with the GTI is a very, very good lane centering system. This one is up there. It's not quite as good, but it does work pretty well, or it has worked pretty well for the last week. It's just not quite as good as those other systems. You know, we've got the blind spot monitoring, we've got the rear cross traffic alert, we've got the rear cross traffic braking, we've got collision avoidance. This car really has all the right things, and one of those things where the systems stay out of your way, but they're there when you really need them. There's also a system called IDIS in this one, which is kind of a cool thing where when there are notifications coming through, if you're in an intense driving situation, if the car senses that your steering hard, or you're accelerating hard, or you're braking hard, you're doing some sort of intense driving, it will hold off from notifying you until it can tell that things have calmed down a little bit, which is a smart system to mitigate all these distractions that we get all the time now with our beeping and buzzing and everything with our phones.
Say what?
Front here, nice classy looking front end. Love the contour and the hood. Love the design through here, through the grille. Lots of cooling, intercooler poking through since this does have that turbocharged engine in it. You got your parking sensors all around. You got your front camera there. Got a vent over here that's just for show. The one on the other side is an actual vent, actually goes through on that side. We got full LED headlights, LED fog lights. This one also has the headlight cleaner because of that climate package that's optioned on this one. Pretty cool little feature. It'll actually spray down the headlights and clean those off. From the side here, we're looking at about 188 inches of overall length. That's a little bit of an in-between sort of size, a little bit bigger than most compacts, a little bit smaller than most mid-size. 113-inch wheelbase. That's quite long for something of this size. Really helps with that ride quality. And we are sitting on 19s. That is a pretty aggressive wheel size for a luxury car. You would be in 18s if you drop down to one of the other two trim levels, and we're wrapped in all seasons. I really like this wheel design, actually. Not a lot of great factory wheel designs, but this one I am a big fan of. I love the gloss black trim around. This does have the dark theme. There is a black edition and a dark theme. This one has the standard dark theme, so that's what all this gloss black trim is. We've got touch to lock and touch to unlock on the back and front doors. A lot of times you just see that on the front doors. This one has it on the back as well, and you notice that we've got the power folding mirrors as well. Those will fold in when you lock the car up. Keep those out of the way. So the plug here for the EV, and we've got a lot of contours through the side here that I really love. Really nice, classy looking car from the side. Back end here, nice boxy look, very Volvo feel to the back end. Got these, I love the taillight design in here, and it's got the Volvo badge across there. Really like the way they did that. Looks a little bit sort of elegant. The T8 here just refers to your powertrain, so if you see that, then you know it is a hybrid vehicle. It's got the all-wheel drive, of course, because all of the S60 Recharges are all-wheel drive with that electric motor on the back. And Recharge, of course, we know what that is. Got a little bit of this black trim going on, again, to sort of set things off, the chrome and the black and the red. This one actually will tow about 2,000 pounds. I know a lot of people don't really think about towing when they are thinking about sedans. They look at bigger cars, trucks, and crossovers, but this will actually tow about 2,000 pounds if you need to. And this pops open with all of my charging equipment going on back here because I'm testing out that other charger from Lectron. But this opens up into about 11.6 cubic feet of space. Pretty decent amount of space here. It looks like a lot more, but it is a little bit shallow. You got the pass through the middle there and the 60-40 split on the seats. And we do get a 12 volt because we are in this upper trim level, and there's a little bit of space underneath the floor here. And we do have a grab handle over here, so no need to put your hands all over the paint. You can open that from the key as well. Got this big boxy key with the buttons on the side, and you can just hold down that button there to pop that trunk open as well, but no power close. Holy moly, it is burning up in here. It is a hot day. We could use some ventilated seats here. Unfortunately, not an option on this car. That is really one of my very, very few complaints with this car, is it could use some ventilated seats. You're talking about $60,000 for a luxury car. But outside of that, we do have heated seats, which I am certainly not using. It is 105 degrees right now. We have a heated steering wheel that is part of that climate package that I mentioned on the exterior. So that climate package is going to be that headlight washer. It's going to be your heated steering wheel, and it's going to give you heated back seats as well. Otherwise, you just get the heated front seats standard. Interior wise here, in this top spec and in the top two specs really, we would be looking at a leather interior in either a black or brown or a blonde, like a white. But for no cost, you can get these wool seats. I highly recommend these. This is the first time I've been in a car with wool seats. These are super comfortable. You can also get a Napa leather if you'd like. That is an additional cost. If you choose the wool or the Napa leather, you also get this cool little crystal thing going on. These are handmade. These are supposed to just contour to your hand. It actually is very hot, surprisingly, even though it is not metal. Otherwise you get this sort of loop looking thing. It's not really my thing, but it's kind of an interesting touch that they added here. You also notice a lot of gloss black around here. That is really the one thing in here that I really don't like. It sort of has an identity crisis going on here in the interior, just mostly because of that gloss black. It makes it feel cheap. Everything else about this interior feels like luxury, feels very, very nice. And then you get this gloss black, which is typically something that you find in an economy level car that's trying to look like luxury but isn't actually, and that's really the only place that this interior really falls down. But outside of that, we've got all these leather surfaces, really nice leather wrap steering wheel, feels great. The wool seats I mentioned, heated I mentioned, also has 4-way power, lumbar support. If you drop down a trim level, you'd only get the 2-way. If you drop down to the base, you would not get the lumbar support at all. This top spec also gets you the power adjustable leg extensions. Nice little touch there. The top spec is the only reason that the passenger seat also has memory settings. You notice the big shiny speakers. If we're in the base, that core trim, or in the plus trim level, we would have a 10 speaker high performance system. If you jump up into this spec, you would typically get a Harman Kardon sound system, 14-way, but this one has the Bowers and Wilkins option. That is a $3,200 option. If you're not familiar with Bowers and Wilkins, is a very high-end sound system. It gets you that tweeter on top, so you got 15 speakers, including that subwoofer, and you can adjust your sound through here. You get like a studio feel or a surround sound, kind of live concert feel, stadium feel. It really is a very good sound system. If you're an audiophile, you definitely want to go for the Bowers and Wilkins sound system. Some other things to note, we do, this is an interesting one up here. There is a ticket holder. I didn't know that that was a problem that needed to be solved, but if you're parking somewhere where you actually have to still get a paper ticket and you're not paying by license plate or something like that, you have to actually put a paper ticket in your windshield, then you can put it right there in that ticket holder. And steering wheel, like I mentioned, very comfortable on the hands. Not too many buttons here. Just a couple of buttons to adjust your adaptive cruise control and your infotainment, just what music you're listening to, and your voice control. Only button on here that actually does anything with the gauge cluster is to turn the map in the middle on or off. And what's going on here in the gauge cluster is just that map that I mentioned, which will also give you directions, obviously, if you have your directions going through the infotainment. It's got your tack on one side and your speed on the other. The tack will actually show you whether you're using power, whether you're charging, or whether you're using gasoline. Also, we've also got your electric range and your gas range. Gas range has been all over the place, but this car does still have under 1,000 miles on it, so I think it's still trying to figure out what that range is based on my driving. In terms of the infotainment here, Volvo does this thing where it kind of looks like a phone almost. You've got your apps. It's a Google-based system, so if you're used to Google, it won't be a big adjustment. It does have Apple CarPlay in here as well, but if you don't want to use that, then you just log into your Google account and you download apps just the same way you would on your phone. So I downloaded Spotify. It's already got Google Maps integrated into here, easily accessible through here, as well as your sound. I mentioned that Bowers and Wilkins. You've got studio, stage, and room. Jazz club, concert hall, very cool. You can adjust that sound system to be just the way you want it. But your volume is still on the outside, your defrosters are still on the outside, and you can still change songs on the outside here. It's just your fan, your heated seats, and your temperature itself. You do have the 360 camera that I mentioned. And here you can go through all the different cameras. It actually has a bunch of cameras. It has cameras on the sides and the front and the back, as well as the top-down view, all very helpful. And once you pull up close to something, it will automatically go into that top-down camera view. Then I mentioned electronic parking brake, and Volvo is doing their own thing with the on-off. Everybody does their own thing with on-off. This is a twist. I wish it was like twist the other way to turn off, twist this way to turn on, but it's a little bit nitpicky. Auto hold feature is here, but you can also just completely disable the creep in traffic if you'd like, where you take your foot off the brake and it starts creeping. You can just completely disable that here, or you can use the auto hold feature here. Back seats are looking at 35.2 inches of legroom. Not huge, but not tiny. If you're a family that's on the taller side, you might run into some problems. I fit back there fine. My kids in forward facing seats fit back there totally fine. Fold down armrest in the middle, fold down headrest so you can bop them on the head through the infotainment screen. Got the pano moonroof. This is another thing that might be a little bit nitpicky, but it is a little bit annoying. It's like a touch sensitive thing here. You have to slide it to go back, and then you touch to pop it open, you touch to close, and then you slide it to close it. It's just one of those things I wish like just give me a button to open it and a button to close it. But again, might be a little bit nitpicky, but that does frustrate me a little. But generally speaking, just a very nice interior, very nice place to be. Only things I wish were in here were the ventilated seats. I wish there was wireless charging, and this gloss black needs to go. But other than that, it's a very comfortable, very nice interior. So at the end of the day, this car has surprised me in quite a few ways. It really is a great luxury car. It solves the problems that we have here with EVs, where you have the range anxiety, because it gets 45 miles. I know it's rated at 41, but it's actually getting 45 miles of electric range, which is more than enough for most people's daily drive. And even if it's not, then you just use a little bit of gas. You don't have to go to the gas station as much, and you're saving a little bit of money. Not that electricity is free, but generally, you know, it's just a nice car. It's comfortable, has just the right driver's assist features. I do wish it had the cooled seats. I do wish there wasn't quite so much piano black, but outside of that, this is a great commute car. I would 100% be considering this whether I lived in the city or whether I had a long highway commute. It's just a really nice, comfortable car to be in. Thanks for watching. As always, make sure to hit all the YouTube buttons. Help me get into more cars. Let me know if I missed something. Let me know if there's something else that you have questions about. And I will see you next time.